Uganda region. So whenever they meet, they pick an ad hoc chairperson. That's the challenge. They haven't agreed. I don't know whether because of the Kampala influence or people power. I'm not so sure, but could be. Then we also came up with the Interfaith Women of Uganda. We strengthened the Interfaith Women of Uganda, became constitutional. They are now part and parcel of our governance structure, and the chairperson of the Interfaith Women of Uganda sits on the RSU board. Mrs. Flores is now a new chairperson, and she's our board member. We also institutionalized the youth interfaith, and I'm happy to report that these two are now members of RSU board, and I saw Hajimagez here. The chairperson is also a member of our board. And then we have the Elders Forum of Uganda. Now I need to clarify this. We had two organizations. There was an organization led by Justice James Ogola, which we formed in 2009, and then we had an IRSU Elders Forum. We have now merged them. So I want to introduce the two chairs of these two organizations, and they'll have to sit together and agree on who now becomes our chairperson for the merged Elders Forum. We cannot stand. Pastor Dr. John Kakembo was the chairperson, or still is our chairperson of the IRSU Elders Forum. And Justice James Ogola is the chairperson of the Elders Forum of Uganda. But we have now merged them. They are now part of our constitution. And for now, Pastor Dr. John Kakembo is a member of our board. We also realized that we needed to build capacities of our faith leaders, of our youth leaders, of our women leaders. And we put in place the Peace and Leadership Institute. And we're happy to report that we have had two headmasters, we call them headmasters at IRSU, Mr. Nento, Godfrey Nento, who now works with the Catholic Secretariat. He left, and when he left, I fished. Remember the other cabinet that the president was talking about? I also fished Canon, is Canon here? Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso? Yes, he's now our headmaster for the Peace and Leadership Institute. The title is director, he's now the director. And we offer different programs. In HIV AIDS, gender-based violence, in advocacy, in governance, interreligious dialogue, in fundraising, and we'll soon be coming to you to support that institute. I need to talk about creating an enabling environment for children. I'm going to ask you to read that because my time is going. Expanding opportunities for young people. See the pictures there, what we've been doing. Consolidation of women participation and opportunities. You will see, please move. A little bit of deepening democracy, building leaders for peace and reconciliation. We want to thank you for the work that you've been doing. Every time we have an election, you've been doing a good job in making sure that our elections are conducted in a free, fair, and transparent manner. We've been doing this through dialogue with both state and non-state actors, and we've developed handbooks, materials for religious leaders to use in your work, in terms of sensitization, in terms of building capacity for religious leaders with knowledge and information about the elections. And in there you will see, I don't know whether I'm at the same level, you will see those meetings that we've been holding. You see Bishop Joshua with Mao. On this side, you see the council presidents engaging with the president. And you see down here the president then of UBC, Mama Dangote, Mzebit and Mr. Lee, we were in our boardroom engaging with them on how we can work together to have a free, fair, transparent election in 2011. We have engaged in policy advocacy, and I just mentioned a few areas here. The area of sex education in schools, and I think we talked about this very well, unfortunately. Like Bishop Joshua said, and Apostle Serwata, recently one of the organizations took this issue to court, and the court ruled that there was no problem having sexuality education in schools. But we have done a lot of advocacy, and it had been stopped. We have engaged with the issues of genetically modified organisms, issues of oil and gas, domestic violence, and of course recently we are dealing with the issue of health insurance.
You're left with 5 minutes.
I'll be done with this. I want to talk about, if we can move. Coming together, I think the president of this country realized that was a good thing to entrust the IRCU Council Presidents with the responsibility of organizing prayers in this country. We are now in charge of all the national prayers that are organized in this country. I was grateful for that. So whether it is COVID, whether it is, apart from parliamentary breakfast, that's organized by themselves, but we still work together to support them. The national end-of-year Thanksgiving, and this year, the end-of-year Thanksgiving will be on the 10th, and again, the Council President is the one that's organizing those prayers. But also you realize that almost in every gathering, in every meeting, that meeting will start with a prayer. So it has not just come. You have worked on it. So that culture is growing, and thank you very much for ensuring that we have a culture that responds to our motto, for God and our country. Even in Parliament, they start with prayer. Even in Cabinet, they start with prayer. And so you've been responsible for this. So, our journey to sustainability. That's where I want to go. In 2017, the Council Presidents met with His Excellency and talked about 3 things. The first one was the need for the national dialogue. Of course, we had talked about that dialogue before, immediately after the elections. But we continued engaging him about the national dialogue. The other issue was the idea of poverty, household incomes. And the third one was on corruption. And arising out of that conversation, we agreed to partner with government to support them in those 3 areas. And we've been able to do many things as a result of that partnership. If you check your bags, you'll find a pastoral letter on building ethics and values, the fight against corruption in Uganda. There is a pastoral letter, and I would like to invite you to look at that pastoral letter. And we are lucky that Bishop Joshua here is now the chairperson, national chairperson of the Zero Tolerance to Corruption. I hope I get it right. Another hand clap for him. His goal is to bring together both state and non-state actors to fight corruption in this country. And tomorrow we'll have space to listen to the IGG to tell us where we are in the fight against corruption. And I'm sure that Bishop Joshua will also say something about that as chairperson. On the second issue of the national dialogue, we were able to the president was able to sign what we call the highest level of commitment, the national dialogue communique. highest level of commitment by government to the communique of the national dialogue. And through that communique, we were able to organize five pilot sessions for the national dialogue in the different areas of this country. And then the last issue is what I'm talking about here, which is the establishment of a demonstration farm. The Council President secured land, leased land in Uigwe, 144-acre piece of land in Uigwe. That's not good enough. On which we have established a demonstration farm. And those pictures you see are pictures of our farm. The name of that farm is called Paradise Demonstration Farm. It's indeed a paradise. When you get there, you find it paradise. And on that farm, we have cows. On that farm, we will have chicken. On that farm, we will have the other one. The other one. The other one. And many other things. But the purpose of that farm is to build competencies, is to build skills of religious leaders, of women of faith, of youth interfaith. That's in different areas, in the different value chains. But also we intend to shift our Peace and Leadership Institute in that place, that you find time to come and get a certificate in the different fields at that farm. So that's where we're going. I need to thank the Council Presidents, and please help me to clap for them. A big hand clap. Through our partnership with NAS, we were able to secure money to build an administration block. Can you put the administration block there? Down here. It's almost complete. It is an administration block, but also it's like a training center. It's very big. We have a big conference hall. We have training facilities there. We have offices there. And if it were not for COVID, I was going to invite you to visit the place today. But unfortunately, we have curfew. We can't go beyond 7.
I give you 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Your Grace. I now need to finish. Very excited. I need to talk about the leadership that inspires. So the Council Presidents is that leadership that inspires. They have inspired us. They are here. And then we have a board that has provided policy oversight. We need to thank them. Led by the chairman of the board, Monsignor Charles Kasibante. And we have a secretariat that works. And we have staff that is competent. So looking into the future, and I need to finish, that IRSU has made significant strides in laying the foundation for the Interreligious Council Cooperation in Uganda, the benefits for which are self-evident. The growing mutual trust among the leaders of faith communities is quite commendable. It has created a conducive environment for celebrating diversity and stands as a testimony in this country. One wise person said, in facing the future, we need to plan purposefully, prepare prayerfully, proceed positively, and pursue our goals persistently. These values have been part of IRSU's experience in years past and will continue to be relevant for the future. I want to thank you very much for this.
Once again, louder than that, could we let the beautiful presentation of the successes and what is waiting for us for the future. Thank you, our Secretary General, for that presentation. Thank you. The next person is supposed to be Dr. Aaron, Professor Aaron because we are used to short names, I fear to mispronounce it. My brother here may help me to pronounce it more clearly. He is the Vice Chancellor of Uganda Christian University. I wonder if he's around. Is he? Oh yes, so you're most welcome to present your topic, which is maintaining resilient faith communities in the COVID-19 era. Please, may we welcome him to the presentation. Thank you, Professor, for accepting to present this topic. You're most welcome. Remember, I'm giving you 30 minutes. If there is any need, I will only add 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your Grace the Archbishop and Chair of the Interreligious Council of Uganda, the Council of Presidents, all protocol observed. Let me start by congratulating the Interreligious Council of Uganda on your celebration of 20 years of success and big achievements, as we've just heard. Congratulations. I don't know if the presentation is ready, because I sent it a long time ago. I give you a second, but the chair may not add the second to my time. Okay, I'll give you a second. I'm married to a wife who is female. I must declare that since I'm in a religious meeting, and we have 4 children. And by the grace of God, the Archbishop and the House of Bishops chose me to lead the university. It is ready. Thank you very much. That is a very historical hall at UCU. Those who have been there know it. We call it Principal's Hall. It's very significant. So let's talk about resilience, first of all. Resilience, for those who know English, enough of it know that is a noun, and refers to the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. In other words, it refers to toughness, the tenacity of an individual, an institution, or its ability to persevere in difficulties. The other interesting definition I found is the one that defines resilience as the ability of an entity to recover, mark those words, or bounce back, like when you throw a ball against the wall, from the adverse effects of a natural or man-made threat. So again, the idea of the adverse effects is key, and then a threat. Is COVID-19 a man-made threat? Or is it a natural threat? Man-made. The audience is saying it is man-made. The other definition I found by Carlson and others says the ability of an entity to anticipate, very key word, we'll meet it as we go along, resist, if possible, or absorb, respond to, adapt to, and recover. Very, very important. Recover, adapt, respond to, and recover from a disturbance. Again, the idea of a disturbance, something that disrupts a natural situation, keeps coming up. And the last definition, which I also like by Fisker and others, says the capacity of a system to survive, adapt, and grow in the face of change and uncertainty. So all these definitions have the same words which recur, and the idea of adaptation, of surviving, of uncertainty keeps coming. On the next slide, when we talk about resilient faith, since we are in the Interreligious Council, We're really talking about faith in a God that does not waver, that does not give up. Faith that has hallmarks of resilience, faith that cannot be shaken. And so when we talk about resilient faith communities, we are referring to those communities that are built on resilient faith, that cannot easily give up, even in times of trial, just like the ones we are in right now. Therefore, this resilient faith creates communities of people that are united in their faith in God and in the face of adversity, such as COVID-19. Now, there are a number of assumptions we can make about resilient institutions. And on the next slide, we will see that resilience is thus an integral part of risk management. As institutions, we are supposed to have a risk management plan. If there is a crisis, how do we respond to it? A risk management plan. An entity or community's resilience capacity is therefore judged by the following things. First of all, it's judged by its crisis or disaster awareness or readiness. Is your faith community, does it have that readiness or awareness that a disaster can easily come anytime? Do we have that readiness in our minds? Secondly, the ability to resist or absorb shocks, what I'm calling the fight-back mentality. Fight-back mentality. Are you able to resist or absorb? Sometimes it is possible to resist a disturbance. I heard that you rejected some money in millions of dollars because you didn't agree. So you can resist. But sometimes you can absorb a shock and live with it. Thirdly, the capacity to adapt to disruption through creativity and innovation. That's another test of resilience of an institution. Are you able to adopt creative and innovative ways of survival when you're disrupted by a crisis such as COVID-19? Number 4, ability to restore equilibrium or stability. Does your faith community have that ability to restore equilibrium when it is disrupted, to restore stability? And lastly, the readiness to undergo change or self-renewal. Crises should be opportunities for us to renew ourselves as institutions, to say, now that this has happened, how can we use it to strengthen ourselves, to renew ourselves, and become better and even stronger? And I hope that as the Interreligious Council for Uganda, you also have that willingness to undergo change, to renew yourself now that COVID has happened. Because I'm a scholar, I try to put a diagrammatic representation of resilience, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it clearly. But when you look at the left, you have that horizontal line represents equilibrium, the state when things are going well, that horizontal line. And then in the first phase, you have an anticipation, what I'm calling preparedness, that something could disrupt that equilibrium. So the second arrow there shows the disruption which occurs when an event such as COVID or a war situation happens. And so in that corner, in that 90-degree corner, is when you therefore talk about resisting or absorbing the shock, what I'm calling the mitigation measure that you take. The down loop represents the low fall. You know, when a shock comes, the institution goes down, like we have seen during lockdown. But that is a moment for response or adaptation. That low moment is when you now think of adapting, surviving the shock. And then the upward trend back to the equilibrium represents the recovery process, what you're doing to recover and re-establish the normal course of events, if possible. The next slide shows you how I have tried to put this in words. In the first box, you have preparedness. Keep those words in mind, they're very important. Resilience, one element of it is preparedness. All the activities and actions taken by an organization to define crises, hazards that it may face. So even as faith institutions, we have to have that mindset of preparedness. Suppose this happened to my church. What can I do to prepare for a worst case scenario? The second stage is mitigation. What you do to resist, if possible, or to absorb the shock, the crisis. So all the activities and plans you do to mitigate the consequences of severity of the crisis. Then the third level is response. This is where you now respond or carry out adaptation measures so that you can survive the adverse effects. And lastly, the recovery stage, where you carry out activities and programs to help the organization return to normal conditions prior to the crisis, or to even emerge stronger and more efficient. And I hope that as the Interreligious Council, you also have that kind of plan. So I'm going to take you through the resilience approach we have taken at UCU, because I thought instead of boring you with academic jargon, we should just give you a testimony of what we have done at one of your institutions to show resilience and survive. And I'll talk about those 4 points which I've just gone through in the previous slide. First of all, what have we done to show preparedness for a crisis? Preparedness can occur at different levels, but I'll share some of them. The first is financial readiness. As an institution that is monitored by government, by the National Council for Education, we are required to have financial reserves, money that you invest and keep aside, so that when there is a crisis, you can fall back to that reserve to allow you to operate for at least 6 months. That is a requirement from government. Now, when I went there, I found that when I joined UCU in September at the height of the pandemic, I found that the reserves had come down because the university was locked, was in lockdown, and yet you still had to spend on operational costs. So the money that the university had was really coming down at a very high rate. In fact, when they gave me the accounts for the university, I thought I should go and tell the Archbishop that, okay, because it was very scary. The money which was there would not even take us for a few months. Secondly, investment readiness. Assets to fall back to in a crisis. Do we have assets? UCU has few assets, and so it is very important that we invest in more assets as part of our readiness. The other one is infrastructure readiness. In our case, we needed to have infrastructure for e-learning. Now, to our credit, the retired Vice Chancellor, Dr. Senyi, had built a small e-learning center as part of the requirement for every university to have an e-learning center. But it was not well equipped or tested for online learning alternatives in a crisis. So the center was there, but it was not well equipped to withstand a crisis. And then the last point on preparedness was our staff and student readiness. While some of our staff had used the e-learning platform, many of them tried to ignore it because things were normal and they didn't see why they should teach online. So the lessons we can draw from this level of preparedness is that to be resilient, we have to be prepared. We have to show a high level of preparedness, and we have to be ready to operate without cash flows. If there is no money coming in, can you still operate for some time? And at UCU, we are not prepared, I must say. We are prepared a bit, but we are not ready for a crisis. The second level is mitigation measures. Plans to mitigate negative consequences of a crisis. At UCU, what they did during the chairmanship of Bishop Sheldon Mwesigwa as chair of council, when I came in, they had scaled back on operations. They had suspended contracts of staff because there was no money to pay them during lockdown. But one good thing that Bishop Sheldon and his council left in place was a business continuity plan. They set up a committee which would propose urgent interventions that the university would follow. And that committee has really helped us a lot. The other is stakeholder engagement. We had to do consultations with key leaders in the university so that they could buy into the changes that were being proposed. And the last one, which is always the hardest, is mindset change. The staff at UCU were not very eager to change. They had been used to teaching in a classroom. The students were used to being taught, face to face. And when I came in, I said, we have to go online. And you should have been there to see the war which erupted, with everybody saying, this cannot happen, it's impossible. So what I did was to tell a few deans who are willing to try to go ahead. So I told the deans who are saying it is impossible to wait until COVID ends. But after 1 month, they came without anybody inviting them, and they joined us. So in mitigation, the lesson we can draw is that you have to adopt a business unusual attitude and not a business as usual attitude if you are to carry out mitigation plans. So one of the things we had to do at UC was to constantly engage staff and students, take them through training so that we can change mindset for them to adapt to a crisis. The response plan we have carried out, one was to digitize operations. Fortunately, again, before Dr. Senyi retired, he had set up a team to build what we call the Alpha MIS, the Management Information System. UC is probably one of the few universities which are using their own homegrown management information system. And we thank our team that has done this, because it came in very handy when we started working remotely. Secondly, as a response plan, we have cut costs and improved service delivery by outsourcing what we consider non-core support services as part of the response plan. Thirdly, we've been going through review of our academic programs to eliminate duplication of course units. You see, in normal times, because the university had resources, the faculties had developed so many programs, and some of them did not have adequate numbers. But because the times were okay, nobody really cared much. But now, because of the crisis, we are going through a review to ensure that we are not duplicating course units and therefore wasting resources. Number 4 is HR restructuring of the establishment. Our objective was again to ensure that the institution is being run on a performance-based reward system, and also to restore motivation of the staff. Fifthly, administrative reforms. We're still carrying out these, and some of these involve devolution of powers to lower units to cut bureaucratic systems which can also slow down change when a crisis hits. So in terms of academic resilience, I can say UCU has coped well, because when we carried out these measures, we were able to continue teaching our students. The students never stalled in their learning. And so while other universities are now talking of students catching up with what they lost, at UCU we continue teaching online, and students graduated. And I think we may be the only university that has first-year students who are learning currently and are progressing in their studies. So, thank you. Because of these innovations, we're able to successfully administer take-home examinations, doing exams remotely, which nobody had ever thought would be possible. We're able to conduct online pre-entry examinations and interviews for law, medicine, and dentistry applicants. Meeting and interviewing students totally online is not a simple thing. And I remember the first time we tried it, our system crashed after we had interviewed 100 students. But we said, no, it is going to work. And we were able to go back and rebuild it. And now it is running smoothly. We also embraced online learning fully, and we have held several graduation ceremonies purely online, and our students are going on with their life. So our vision is to have a fully functional, what we are calling an e-campus, a paperless university in Uganda. That is still a dream, but we are working on it, to have a paperless university with everything done digitally. Right now, all our operations are done digitally. We don't sign hard papers anymore. We approve financial payments online. We admit students online, and they register online, and they graduate online. So we are getting there. Praise the Lord. So because of these hard changes, we have established a good name as the benchmark for e-learning. We have had many universities come to say, how did you do it? How did it happen? Can you share tips with us? And we're very willing to share. We have spent a lot of resources in building our online capacity. Now our e-learning lab, which used to be very small and inefficient, we have boosted it with new technologies and servers, and it's doing a very good job. To the extent that students at UCU, when the government allowed us to have students back on campus, our students resisted it. Can you imagine? When we told them we're going to teach online, they almost threw stones at us. But now they don't want to come back to class. They are saying online learning is the best. You leave us. So we have now decided to have what we call blended learning. Teach it face-to-face, but also have virtual classes going simultaneously. Let me talk about the recovery and stabilization efforts, and then I'll be done. Because of these measures to ensure resilience, we have recalled the majority of our staff. They are now working, and they're earning salaries every month. We have ensured blended learning as a new normal, and we intend to keep online learning as part of our menu. We have cleared all statutory financial obligations. When during the lockdown, as I said, the university was running low on resources, and we had accumulated NSSF payments, pay as you earn, and so many other statutory deductions which we are not remitting. But right now, we are up to date. All the payments have been made, and UC is not indebted to these financial institutions. Second, we have been able to leverage our church relations to support innovations. When we were changing to go to online learning, and students were very hostile, there was a time when we visited the Archbishop. We sent him a team from our communications department to go and record a message from the Chancellor to assure everybody that this is okay, it is possible. And the Chancellor, your message was very important for us because it changed the situation. Because when the Chancellor speaks, nobody can oppose him. So how much do you leverage the opportunities around you, the institutions around you, for your advantage? We also took advantage of the Archbishop's TV hour. He was doing services on TV during lockdown. So we came to him and said, you just give us 3 minutes of your time, and we update our students and staff. And again, we thank the Archbishop for giving us the airtime. Then we also have been able to use what we have to get what we need. We are exploring partnerships and investment ideas as part of the recovery and stabilization efforts. So finally, what lessons can we learn from this resilient journey by UCU? The last 2 slides show you some of the points I've summarized to show how we can build resilience. Number 1, do not waste a crisis when it happens. And UCU made sure that we did not waste this crisis. By that I mean that you should use a crisis situation to reflect on your mission and work as a faith-based institution. Don't look at the crisis and just cry about it. Take advantage of it positively to make some reforms, to make some improvements. Secondly, in a crisis, if you want to be resilient, going digital is key. And I'm very glad that the Church of Uganda has embraced this. The Pentecostal churches have embraced this by using digital tools for online operations. Now you see many ministers going on with televangelism. You've heard of Online Church of Uganda. You've heard of many churches now owning radios and YouTube channels. I think this is the way to go to be ready for a crisis when it happens. And some of the churches that have survived and done well in this country are those that were digitally prepared. And I can mention, for example, St. Francis Chapel at Makele. Because they had embraced digital operations even before COVID, they were able to continue quite smoothly. Number 3, be eager to learn new tools for a new trade and for a tough terrain. The Archbishop often tells us that you cannot use old tools for new challenges. So let's not continue with this attitude of business as usual when there is a crisis. To be resilient, we have to be able to adapt to take on new tools so that we can survive in a new challenging situation.
5 minutes left.
5 is very good, thank you, Your Grace. Number 4, trust. Because we are an institution that believe in God, trust in God is critical to our faith. But we also need to anticipate and prepare for crisis situations. I know that as believers in God, we say, God will make a way, and He does make a way, for sure. But this does not take away our human ability to prepare, and then God will fight our battles as we work with Him. Next is to save and build financial reserves for tough times. This is very challenging, especially in our faith communities, because faith institutions don't have a lot of money, neither does UCU. But can we put aside something for a hard day, for a challenging day? Can we take on this culture of saving, of putting aside some reserves, so that when a shock happens, you can be able to move on as you reorganize your operations? Next is to invest in other streams of income. We are trying to go this route at UCU to look at other opportunities for investment, because when you have investments, then they become a fallback position. Then you use the proceeds, the income from the investments, to cushion the shocks that you have. And I'm very glad that the churches these days are talking of investments in assets, in businesses. I saw our Mukono Diocese, for example, has now a line of shops in Mukono town on the highway, and they are earning income from that. The Church of Uganda has this project of church house, and the other churches have these projects which are going to help them to earn some income. The next point is to adapt or become a dinosaur. The most resilient institutions are those that adapt to a crisis and emerge stronger. So even as we talk about post-COVID, when it comes, if it comes, can we also talk about adapting to a new situation? How are we prepared to now live in what we have called the new normal or the new abnormal? As faith communities, we must mobilize prayer support during a crisis. One of the things I did during the crisis at UC was to set up prayer groups of intercessors to pray for the institution and to lift it to God. And I'm telling you, we have seen God do miracles through these prayer interventions. Lastly, let us inspire faith and hope. I think Mr. Chitakule talked about it. When you're leading in a crisis, don't propagate despair and fear and despondence. That is the time to inspire faith and hope in those that you lead, because they need your encouragement. and they need your assurance that things will be well. Finally, I'll leave you with a quote from one of our greatest politicians in Africa, the late Nelson Mandela, who said, "A winner is a dreamer who never gives up." May we be those dreamers for God in our institutions that will say, no, we will not give up, even in this, because we serve a God who is bigger than all our crises put together, and you see us through. May God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor, for that brilliant presentation. Can we give him another applause? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I thank you very much for being so precise with the time. I know you are a time management officer there, so you have done it. Can we give him another applause for that? Thank you. Next, we have Bishop Joshua Bwere, the National Overseer, Association of Pentecostals and Evangelical in Uganda. So, co-chair, yes, you're most welcome. He's going to present the role of religious leaders in national transformation. That I know this topic is passionate topic. Yes, Bishop. Again, I give you 30 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Will everybody be still awake? Can you stand up and stretch a little bit because I'm going to fight food?
Oh,
Stretch a little bit.
okay.
It's not coming yet. Yes. What is that, Bishop? What was that you were doing?
Picking fruits, picking fruits.
Picking what?
Fruits.
Incendiary. Okay. If you are straight, you can please sit down. I promised you when I was giving you a greeting that time I was bringing a Mitoje. So now I'm coming with Gaga Mbuju. That is the first session was the news in headlines. So I don't know what's the problem here, but you need to stretch and pray for this section here, up here, so that I get my presentation quickly, because I only have a few minutes and I'm praying that I will get through. My responsibility is to share quickly about our role as religious leaders in national transformation, what our responsibilities are, what is involved, is it part of our calling to transform society, is it part of our calling, is it not? In the first session, when I was doing the greeting, I mentioned the fact that we have a threefold role. That threefold role includes our prophetic role, Quran side, I don't know how to put them, but I think the prophetic we share. I don't know what would be the right priestly. Do you use the word priestly? What would you use for somebody who's a clergy from the Muslim faith side? What do you use? Do you use the word the priest, like imam, or what would be the right? Still priestly. Okay. And then the kingly has to do I'm going to explain it a little bit so that we are on the same page. And those are the ones I'm going to restrict myself to, and how, as they fit in our situation, as they fit in our calling. Let me start with the prophetic role. Let me start with the priestesses. They are still struggling with the system here. That one is easy for us to understand. Number one, in the priestly role, we have responsibility to pray and intercede for the people and their leaders. That is easy. All of us are doing that very well. And I'm not spend much time on it. The second is we use our pulpits, our positions, to preach the message God has given to us. That one is also easy, and I'll not make more comments. The third is pastoral. Pastoral means we nurture the people, we shepherd them, we take care of them. That is our pastoral role. Feeding the people, nurturing the people, caring for the people, comforting the people, encouraging the people. Those are all words that have to fit in the our pastoral responsibility, shepherding responsibility. We shepherd our oppressed, dispossessed, disadvantaged, discouraged, disenfranchised. This is part of our priestly role. Then we have a teaching role. Earlier on I mentioned that we have to preach the message, but the teaching has to do with explaining. It goes a little bit deeper, and we have to teach the truth. People are transformed by the truth. The truth has to change. Okay. Teaching God's truth is so important. In the scriptures, in the Bible, for example, in the book of Hosea, Prophet Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." When people don't have knowledge, and we have a problem in our days today, there's a lot of preaching that does not take people deeper into the knowledge of the truth. And it leaves believers hanging. They are emotional, they are hysterical, but they're not deep. When you don't teach people the truth, they may be enthusiastic, they may be emotionally committed, but those people cannot change. It's not a sustainable way of transforming societies. That's why in Israel, when God got these people, this bunch of slaves, 3 million slaves from Egypt, He made every one of the fathers, every husband and father in the family was a teacher. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, it says, every one of you will teach. You teach your children when you sit down, when you wake up. So the primary school was in the house, in the home. The secondary school was in the synagogue. Then the temple was the university. That changed and transformed these slaves totally, completely. It meant that everybody, every husband and parent had to write, had to learn to read and then to write. You can imagine, God himself initiated the Bonabasome. Bonabasome didn't start with us here. It started with God demanding that every husband, every father was to be a teacher. Teach when you sit down. Teach when you wake up. You need to explain this truth. And Dr. Kakembo, earlier in the morning, he was explaining that these laws, you repeat them all the time, repeat them. They passed on so much. At that time, not many people were literate, but because they kept teaching and explaining, and then he gave them 7 feasts. In each feast, they had to teach and explain. Teach and explain. Teach and explain. When you have a Passover feast, sit down and explain why we are slaughtering a lamb, why we are catching the blood, why are we doing this? So everybody became a teacher, and that grassroots intellectualism changed that nation from a bunch of slaves to the most successful nation in the Middle East that time. The Queen of Sheba had to travel 700 miles to come and find this nation, which was so prosperous, and they said, I've never seen anything like this here. Yet this was a nation of slaves. The nation was changed and transformed by the teaching. Now what I'm emphasizing is our role to explain and teach. More than just preaching, more than the sermons that we do on our times of worship, days of worship. We have a responsibility of teaching. But we go beyond the congregations. We are supposed to teach the community. In Israel, the priest was the most educated person. Now that continued in Europe and America during the time when they were still following the scriptures. The priest was always the most educated person, was always the one who would guide in hygiene, in health. For example, in the Bible, the requirement was if you had leprosy and you are healed, you go to the priest. The priest would check you out and see if you have been healed, and then he will give you a certificate to go back into the community, because the lepers were separated from the rest of the community. They were not allowed to be with other people. But who would do that checking? It was the priest, because the priest was the medical doctor, he was the health worker, he was the agriculture extension worker. The priests were these kind of people. So this is what we're supposed to do in our day. We are supposed to be the people who teach. When people have just come out of politics and new leaders are elected, we have to sit them down and teach them from our scriptures what the scriptures talk about leaders. Servant leadership, loving people, caring for the people. We are the ones supposed to do that. Not just preaching, but teaching and explaining principles from our books, our scriptures, so that they are ingrained. These nations that we look at today, which we call prosperous nations, advanced nations, used to do that. Or, for example, America, for the first 200 years, they used to do that. They always had an election sermon. After the people had been elected, councillors, they would sit them down at the front, and the priest or the pastor would teach the election day sermon. And he would teach them what leaders are supposed to do, what they are not supposed to do, consequences of rebellion, of leaders, consequences of rebellion, of followers, of societies, of communities. This is our responsibility, which we are not doing very well in our days. Because somebody put it this way: if you want to hide anything from other Africans, put it somewhere. Where? Why? In a book. Put it in a book, and the African, even if you put millions of money, they will not. That money will be safe there, because they will not open it. They will not realize you've actually put money there, because they don't want to read. Reading and studying, and that is education, is very, very important in God's idea of transforming. Why? Because when you know the truth sets you free. It is lack of truth and ignorance that results into sickness and disease, and also results into poverty. Poverty and disease are mere result of lack of holistic education. I'm using that word, holistic education, because we have so many people who have education which is just loop-sided. Holistic education means that people are educated in the head, academically, they are educated in the heart, that is morally, they are upright, their character, they have been educated, what they should do, what they should not do, but they are also educated in their hands, the skills, so that somebody who has a degree or two cannot loiter the street just looking for a job. When you have such people, it means their education is loop-sided, it's not balanced. How come somebody who never went to school is able to make a living from 10,000, he sells kabaragara and then manages to make, a living and his family, and then somebody who is educated cannot? And you have so many. Majority of the people who are causing troubles are those who have that kind of loop-sided education. So you educate the head, educate the heart, you educate the hands, those are the skills, and then the house, our community responsibility, our community consciousness. Somebody should be concerned about the community. The education that the scriptures talk about involve people who are educated, knowing or having a sense of responsibility towards their community. You can't just live in an island. You can't take 3 billion, steal it alone, and all the people in the village die. That is somebody who got education of accounting and auditing. He can steal without feeling anything. Now, is that holistic education? Yes. Because it involves academic, he's a good accountant, academically, but his heart is right. He has the skills to balance books and account, is accountable, but he also has a feeling for the people around them. If you are only educating the mind, they have the skills and the mind, they don't have the heart and they don't have the house, that is community responsibility. Those are the majority of the people that we are having problem with in this country. They are experts in covering their audit trails that after they have stolen money, you can't even trace it because they know how to cover every audit trail. Even if you bring whatever auditors, they'll see because they know their knowledge and their expertise is how to do it so well that you can't even discover them. Even if you brought a sniffer dog, you cannot trace where the money was what? Was stolen. Now, what God instituted in the nation of Israel at that time, which made it great, as our devotion leader this morning were talking about, was to instill all those four in the community and the society. Our role as religious leaders is to have that holistic approach to life and constantly bring it out in the people's life, not only my congregation, but also the community around me. How can I be prospering and the congregation when the people all around us are in sickness, in poverty, in lack? That's what we are having in our day. Our responsibility goes beyond these 500 people that are in my congregation, this 1,000 or 2,000 in my congregation. Every leader, every religious leader, if he is following the principles, godly principles, he will not only pastor the people who sit in his congregation, he pastors the whole village. He pastors the whole community, meaning he's concerned about it, he teaches them, he guides them, he's concerned about them, he prays for them. And when you do that, then God starts to bring the resources. Take an example. Suppose you have another DC. I know I give an example of another DC or LC5. If he was to pray, if you found the LC5 praying, what would be praying about? He would be praying about all the children on the street, all the hospitals that are not working, all the orphans and the widows. His mindset is all the 500,000 people in that district. How about a typical pastor or imam or catechist? What fills his mind when he's praying? Tell me, let's be honest. A local catechist, a local pastor, a local imam. How does he pray when he's praying? What fills his mind when he's praying?
His congregation.
Yeah?
His congregation.
He's only praying for his congregation, my people, our roof, our building program, our mosque, our church, if you are God and you are listening to both, the LC5 and the imam and the pastor, whom would you answer first? Whose prayers would you first answer? Let's be honest. Yeah? The LC5 is praying for the whole community, the poverty, health problems, the orphans. I mean, it's full of all these roads that are not working, the clinics that are not working, the schools that are dilapidated. And the local pastor, the local imam, what is he praying for? Iron sheets. Yeah? Daily bread. Yeah? So, what if you are God and you are seated there? Whom would you answer first? You would answer the what? The LC5 first. Because when you answer the LC5's prayers, even the imams answer the prayers and the pastors' prayers and all this will be answered as well. Because the LC5 is praying for these people to come out of poverty. And God answers his prayers, and then the people come out of poverty. The next time the pastor stands up to make a fundraising, he will not even need to pray. The people will just contribute because the LC5 had his prayers answered, and these people are now what? Now, you see what I'm making, the point I'm making now. So what you see, most of the resources that should be in our hands are passed on to the LC5. Why? Because he has a broader perspective. Because that's where his mind is. Because for him, he plans for everybody, prays for everybody, is concerned about everybody, and that is where God will send the resources. So when you see those big cars pass by you, those vehicles are supposed to be ours if we are doing our responsibility. Our responsibility goes beyond just our congregation. It is broader. And God always says this. In the Bible it says like this. He said to Abraham, you lift your eyes. Where you end is where I will give you. If for you, you determine that only these 500 people are my responsibility in this mosque or in this church, and you fix yourself there, that's all you get. That's all you see. That's all you pray. And the resources he will give you will be limited to what you can see. If you go beyond that and you see a whole village or a whole parish, and you start to take responsibility on that scale, the resources you get will be accordingly. Now ask your neighbor, what do you see? How far do you see? How far do you see? God will give you according to what you see. The resources you get from God, the answers depend according to what you see. And you said in the God, God is not limited. He has all the resources, but we limit him. He always told Israel, you limit the Holy One of Israel. He was always condemning the nation of Israel. You limit me because you made me so small. You made me as if I'm not strong enough. Now, this is our pastoral responsibility. Now, I had decided to put all this there, but since they are inside Israel, I'll just continue. If the PowerPoint comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, so just listen to me now. Oh, now, that is one. I'm just covering, that is the priesthood, the teaching responsibility of our teaching responsibility. We have responsibility not only on our congregations, but also the communities around us. Let me give you an example. In a church where I started 20 years ago, I was walking around. Next to our church is a slum area. There was a storm. During that storm, these ramshackle structures in that slum fell. One of them almost fell on a woman who is a young woman, had 2 children. Fortunately, the wall fell outside instead of inside. Had it fallen inside, this small woman would have died with her 2 children. It touched me so much that I was I said, Lord, I can't be there as a pastor when this woman here and all these people in this community are really dying. You are dying of cholera. You heard about the cholera those days in the 2005, 6, and 7 in the city was terrible. So many people died of cholera. And I decided I would go and pray. I felt I needed to take responsibility as a pastor from this perspective, that I'm responsible. Although these people are not part of my congregation, I am the agent of God in this community. I represent God here. If I represent God, that means I'm the solution to the problems of this community. I'm the solution to the village. I'm the solution to cholera, to bad housing. So many of them were outside. They had no housing. They were displaced. So God gave me an idea to just rent and lease land from the owner who had all these ramshackle structures in this slum area. I leased it. I told this old woman, I asked her, how much do you get out of your structures every month? Of course, it was very little because these people were not managing. They were not paying her. She was a widow. She was struggling, and all of them were disappearing in the night. I said, you give me that, your whole land, lease it to me, and I'm going to change this community. I will give it to me for 10 years, and I'm going to build a housing project here for these poor people. They will be paying, but I want to change the environment. I'm trying to cut the long story short. She agreed at first, reluctantly. She thought I was lying, too good to believe. I said, after 10 years, these buildings will be yours. But somehow I managed to get money I took my building to the bank, and I got quite a bit of money, and I changed that whole place. I built this housing estate of about 150 units, and when I did, I put walls around it, gates, and then it was all paved. This is a swamp place, putting stones and paving it, and then wall and water and changing the latrines. Now they were using Govera, you know Govera, polythene for toilets. Now I put these toilets, and they're using water, brought water into the estate, and the whole place changed completely. I had calculated that after 8 years, I would have this money back, even if she does not give me or extend my lease. At least I would have done something for the community, and that money which I was getting as rent from these new structures, I was able to pay the bank loan and then get a balance. Now that changed that whole community. Now some of you who know behind Aga Khan, it is a slum called Kakajo. That place is there. And when I built that place, it totally changed. Even students in Makerere and the other university would come and sit there. And it was totally different. After a few years, she said, I want to add more years. She added me another 5 because she needed money. I said, she didn't keep giving me some money. I also don't have school fees. So I said, you add me more years. She added me 5. Then she added another 5. Then recently she added 20 years. Now she said, now I give you for 20 years. And I now managed to pay off the bank loan, and then managed to retain all the housing estate. Now that came from a burden to think that I have responsibility to do something. But this is how it had started. Earlier on, as church, we decided that based on the Old Testament principle, every 3 years, 1 year, the tithe would not go to the Levites. For every 3 years, 1 year would go to the poor. They would collect their harvest in their community, and they would call the poor, the needy, the widows, and then they would feed them. For 1 year, they didn't give their tithe to the Levites. The tithe went to the poor people. So we used that as our church when we started, that we are going to use this principle. 1 out of 3, or a third of all our income, we are going to invest it in the community. We'll be using the 2/3. And let me tell you that principle has worked and given us great blessings. When you take care of the poor, God blesses you. God blesses you so much, because the scriptures say, when you give to the poor, you are lending to the Lord, and He will give you in the time of your what? Your need. Now, I had a big battle with my elders and the pastors, deciding that a third of all our income is going to go to the poor, to that community, because we had been doing a lot in that community, drainage, fumigation, all the people who didn't have Kabuyonjo, the community well. Our third was going to that community. And we were already friends. Now, one time, KCCA wanted to demolish one of my structures. The whole village stood up and said, so the city council ran away. So I have a whole community that fights for me. Nobody can touch me, and don't dare come and touch me, that community, because, Now, why? Because now I took responsibility to pastor not only my congregation, but also to shepherd the whole what? Community. Now I'm talking about our religious responsibility to love the communities where we are, not in words only, but in reality. I'm told you, when you touch somebody with your money, you've touched their hearts. And we've continued to do that. A third of all our income goes to communities. We started a school in Rakai. Who comes from Padel? Anybody who comes from Padel here? Nobody. Now, okay. In Padel, in 2006, after the war, with that third I was telling you about, I decided that we, as Baganda, needed to love our brothers in Akyori. So I went there with my young children and decided to stay in some of the camps, Alelo, Opit, Naka, about 5 of them, both in Acholi and in Chitum and in Padel. And I would spend time with them, teaching them how to work, explaining what I'm talking about. Now one time these people came to me and said, "Are you really Uganda?" I said, "Yes." "Can you come here and be with us in this situation? And what is your name?" "Maybe you are Were, you are not Were." I said, "Were is a Ugandan name. We cannot understand how you can come here with your little children and live with us. You've really shown us the love of what? Of God." Now, people had come out of the war at that time, and we decided they were going to take 5 camps, one in Pajule, another one in Palanga, another one from Rachikoko, Padel Town Council, and another one, I forgot. There were 5. And he said, "We're going to take every 1/3 of our income, as we have done in Kampala, to just invest it in these people." But as we started to do that, something happened. There was an organization here in the city. They had a lot of money. They had nothing to do with it. We told them, "Give it to us. We are going into the north." They had 110 million, which they had. And they said, "We can give it to you." So I went to those camps at that time. I called 10 leaders. I told them, if I come to do this project, it will be too expensive for me to keep running to and fro. I want you to be the project coordinators. Rather than me employing somebody from Kampala to keep coming with a big vehicle, per diem, fuel, hotel costs, that money, administrative costs, I'm going to give it to you on this agreement. I'm going to buy you new bicycles, brand new bicycles, all of you, on condition that for the 3 years of the project, you are going to be sending me reports. You write a report every month. You will be looking after these projects. I had given some people pigs, others chicken, others goats. They had so many projects in these 5 camps. And these people were to supervise them. I trained them, and they were to write reports. If you send a report every month for the next 3 years, that bicycle will be yours after that period. Of course, people at that time were so poor. And then I said, I'm choosing this leader. He was called Alfred Akena. I said, "You are the one who's going to be their chief. They are all going to report to you, then you report to me in Kampala. For you, I'm not going to buy a bicycle. I'm going to buy a big motorcycle. If you do what you're supposed to do for the next 3 years, sending me the reports every month for the next 3 years, that motorcycle will be yours after the 3 years." And guess what? All of them were faithful because I allowed them to use their bicycles to do their own business. And they were so happy to do the project because they are empowered. They are happy because they are helping their own people. Instead of me paying people from Kampala to go and do a project in Padel, I'm empowering the people in what? In Padel, to work for their own people, to work in their own community. And it was so successful that Alfred Akena, who was the project coordinator, became so popular in those areas that when the next time when there was election, he stood for LC5 and became LC5.
Yes.
That is how we as religious leaders can be effective in transforming not only the community, but transforming the mindset. When I went back after a period, 3 years, when I was there that time, there were 5 minutes left.
5 finished.
5.
Yes.
Time is finished. Oh, okay. When you give a preacher time, they will preach an everlasting gospel. So give me 2 minutes and I'll be done. So when I first went, there were these young girls who had been abducted by Joseph Kony. When they were rescued by government forces, many of them, their mouth had been cut and ears, and the trauma. They were so much in fear. They were failing almost everything. We tried to do so many programs to help them. So we bought balls and things to play, and then games, and then I bought many sewing machines. They'll be trained, and after the training in sewing machines, then they would go and play. These girls, particularly I remember one of them who did not grow breasts, because at the time when she was supposed to grow breasts, she went through this trauma. Have you seen it before? When the girls go through trauma, at the time when their breasts should be growing, the breasts never grow because of because of the trauma of that time of Joseph Kony. So some of these girls did not have breasts because they were taken in the camps and they were traumatized and the hormones were affected, so the breasts never grew, and they were now 20 without breasts. But when we started to do these programs to help them, they would play, they would sing, they would dance. We bought drums, we trained somebody to help them. After I went back, the breasts had grown. And then the younger girls were now planning to marry them. At one time, they invited me to one of them when she was getting married. I was not able to go to attend the wedding, but I was so happy to see that kind of transformation. Now, because my laptop refused and the system, I decided just to share with you. In fact, I was just starting. So, God bless you. That is still has not come. If I have another time, I will start from there.
Thank you, Professor, Pastor Bishop Joshua. Your topic, you really made it more practical, so much so that these religious leaders here are not going to care only for their own sheep within that small circle, but for all. For the whole of Uganda, let us put it like this. And if we think in those terms, I'm sure the world will also be ours. As Jesus said, go to the whole world and change it into many people. So thank you very much. Let's clap for Bishop, really. Bishop Joshua. Wonderful. Thank you. That one is not enough. Let us clap another one. Wonderful. Thank you. We're left with 20 minutes only. And these 20 minutes, I would like to give them to you for your reactions to the three speakers, namely the speaker Joshua Chitakule, who talked about the 20 years journey. He stressed a lot of success there. And then we had also Professor Aaron about maintaining resilient faith in the communities in the period of COVID-19. Then the last one here, the role of religious leaders in the national transformation. Any comments? Any queries? Any suggestions? Whatever you have. I will give you 10 minutes now. The other 5 will be left for conclusion in case. You will excuse me, my sight with the light is a little bit weak, but Bishop Fred, somebody was raising a hand there. Yes? Yes, please. Can you give him microphone? As it has been, tell your name and in case you are minister. Do I give you this?
Fred Sheldon Mwesigwa, Bishop and Kole Diocese. Yes. I'm here mainly to appreciate first from Mr. Chitakule's presentation, combine it with the opening remarks he made. I've seen a farm, 120 acres, something, and also in his opening remarks, he referred to having moved to new offices, and we didn't seem to have clapped, or we didn't click, we didn't seem to have gotten it right. That is no mean achievement. Self-sustenance. There is nothing as bad as being a pauper, and you depend on others. So the practical availability of space for Interreligious Council is a plus, and we congratulate the Council of Presidents for that. And more or less related is probably there are even better demonstrations out there in our constituencies. I would like to urge that the Interreligious Council gets examples. The UCU has done well. This professor has only told you attend. There are miracles there that have been done, and he's more than willing. He comes from the background of revival. Some of us with the revival, we talk too much, we can open up, and some others can say, why has this man said all these things? I've seen it happen sometimes. Religious leaders, we want to hold on to some information that we have. We have good success stories, we don't share, and we suffer. One is strong in this department, another one is strong in this. Let us collaborate and we shall learn a lot. So I urge the Interreligious Council, can you get success stories? Someone can be good in education standards, another one can be good in health, another one can be good in, because we all here have schools, we have health institutions, development projects. That is the way to go. So that when we come, we open up to each other and share. May the Lord God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other? Yes, I see a hand down there. Two, in fact. Let me start with that one, the farthest there. Then there is somebody here in the middle. Please, that one. Yes? Is that the Chairman LC5?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for the session. We commend the House of President for Interreligious Council. I'm Bishop Frank Tibagendeka, the Regional Bishop for Born Again Faith in the Soga region. I want to thank, first of all, the House of Presidents for the courage that you've really gained. We've heard from the Secretary General giving us what you went through for the last 20 years. For the government, in the past, with the religious people, were not so much minded about, simply because, just as the Bishop already said, we were more focused on the church setting or mosques, just around there. Until now, when the government realizes we can do something. I'm just a testimony of what all of you said. As we come together as the religious people, we forget our small differences. We look at the main things that unite us together. Because of that, in my region, in my Uganda district, it came by the grace of God that there was a need for an upright leader to take up the seat. The need was there, but who was to go was not anywhere. Personally, to come into political leadership, it wasn't, first of all, in my own wish. I grew up in church, I was serving in church. I wasn't in LC3 leadership or counselor or nothing, but I just felt the call of God. And when I accepted, I said, God, if you prove you're with me, do to me two things. Give me the favor, also give me good people as a sign that you want me into the leadership. As we prayed, for sure, that is what exactly happened. Into this leadership for the first time, I think maybe in the whole country, for a born-again Christian and a bishop in church, I came into leadership and I won massively with the support of all the Muslims, the biggest percentage in Mayuge, the Catholics, the Protestants, the born-again. So this was a sign that people are forgetting the small differences, but they were looking at an upright leader. So we thank the Inter-Religious Council, it is because of the way you are nurturing us. It is because of what you are putting in us that now people can look at a religious person and trust them. So Dr. Joseph Surada, the apostle, is my spiritual father. He has nurtured me for a long time. And I thank you because of that people trusted me for the first time to be the chairperson LOC5. So I was just adding that testimony to all of you what you're saying. So thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for sharing that testimony. There was somebody here in front. Yes. Sheikh, I hope I'm not adding a title you are not supposed to have.
Sheikh, thank you, sir.
It's a Sheikh, yes, correct, thank you.
My name, I'm Sheikh Ramadan Mulindwa, the district Kadi Luwero. First of all, I'd like to commend the great work done by the Inter-Religious Council of Presidents. It has been indeed a long, fruitful journey full of successes and challenges, which you pray that God will take away with time. I want to thank the Secretary General, Mr. Kitakule, and I think my comment is about taking this work to the lower structures at the ground so that we bring all together our structures. There is a serious need to build our lower structures if you are to come and strengthen the bond between our religious institutions and followers to be brought on board. I have been in Luwero for 3 years now as a religious leader, but we have not had any form of these inter-religious councils or conferences where our people at the ground are really, some of them are not aware of this. But I see now we have a collective responsibility to take on the mantle and to spread the message to our lower structures. I thank you for that.
Thank you once again. Father Thomas Wananda, Orthodox Church, Dean Mbale. Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, allow me add my voice to thank the Council of Presidents, the board, and more so to the Secretariat. In the SG's speech, he was talking more of the success, and to me I think he forgot this, that it was a struggle sometime back that government had left out the religious leaders in implementing some of the projects. For example, in the reducing what? Poverty reduction. That, to me, under this new program, under parish model, some of us at the grassroots there, we are happy, and to me, it is a success. That now the government is in partnership with what? Inter-religious, and we are seeing some success down there. For example, some animals have what? Been distributed to the people in the villages, and they are success. So to me, I feel that was a success, and allow me to thank the Secretariat for all what they have done, that we are now in partnership. And our question is, because some people there have been trained, like in the poultry, but they have not yet received. Maybe that is where the question is. Where is the delay? And also in the those who are going to have the cows, they have not yet received. But also thank them for choosing Mbale, also being among the first polluting districts, and Soroti and the other districts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody behind there, you follow that person. Grace, come nearer. Because the youth leaders are seated behind because we feel comfortable that side. But I want to appreciate the IRCU initiative to strengthen the youth movements in our different sectors. Members are aware that the faith-based organizations in this country have the biggest chunks of land. How I would request through IRCU that the model farm that has been now put in Mukono becomes a replica in all the faith organizations. And since the leaders are all here, would we commit through you, our President, that all faith will put land aside for youth to be able to get what has happened in Mukono in our different faiths? Because the youth are right now unemployed, and yet our land is lying idle. So I request that can we be able to get from this model in Mukono, because Mukono is actually far. For many of the youth who are in many of the villages, they will not come to Mukono. So I'm wondering whether we can actually, through the government and our churches and other faiths, giving land so that they can be model farms in all the regions where different youth can come and benefit and get skills and begin somewhere. Thank you. Very good question and the request. I'm not sure who should answer that. Oh yes, His Grace wants to offer some answer.
Thank you very much. I think since the Council of Presidents are here, maybe we can capture that and discuss it in our next sitting. Because it has to do with land, it has to do with a number of things. And we'll be guided by the Secretary General, definitely how to handle that. The Buyukwe model is very good. It is something where we can learn many things and duplicate it in different areas. But Council of Presidents are here, we will handle that in our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grace, for that answer. There is the homework, of course, to be done by the leaders with the support of the Secretary General, and I guess also the youth will have to provide some of the suggestions of what they would think. Actually, our time is over. It's done. I wanted to request His Grace just now to, as they say, bless this day of today. So please, Your Grace, you're most welcome.
Let me invite you to appreciate our chair, Archbishop John Obama, who has done a very good work. Thank you very much. And I know him as one who also helps in our region to serve the community with the cassava project. Thank you very, very much. He's mobilizing our people in northern Uganda in this project. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate our speakers. I think they have done a good job. Brother Chitakure, Professor Erin Mshingezi, and Bishop Ruere. I am happy that the PowerPoint was not there so that you speak your mind and share testimony, which was very catching and really very inspiring. Thank you very much, all of you, Council of Presidents, different speakers, participants. Thank you for accepting to sit and listen and for not allowing to be harassed by your phones. You know, you can come in a very important meeting like this and your phone harasses you, but you have not accepted that. So thank you so much, organizers. IT, we appreciate our ministers and people of hospitality, hotel, we really appreciate. I want to appreciate each one of you for this day, and tomorrow, definitely, we have another day, and that one will get to know. May I request you to stand up, and I want to request somebody from the women of faith to come and give us a concluding prayer. A woman of faith. Are they still here? Hey, come here. Uh-huh. Yes. You also pray for the tea. It is behind there. Thank you.
Let us arise on our feet as we pray. Father, we want to give you the praise, the glory, and honor. You are a mighty God and a wonderful God. And we believe in your word that says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, you are present. You have been with us since morning, King of Glory. We have learned a lot through our presidents and other representatives, Lord. We are blessed, King of Glory. We thank you for interreligious, Lord, that you have used in this nation greatly, Lord, and covering all Uganda. We thank you for the people that came, the bishops and the pastors that are present here. We thank you, King of Goro, my Father, that these 3 days, what we are going to be discussing is for the good of this nation and to give you the glory in the mighty name of Jesus. We thank you, King of Glory, even as we leave this place, we are departing in the spirit. We are departing in the flesh, but in the spirit we are together. Bless us as we go to our different destinations and those who are sleeping here, I assume. Father, I pray that you may sleep in peace and rise tomorrow morning in the praise of your name and bring us back, King of Glory, for the good of your name. In Jesus' name I have prayed. Amen. I will request you to sit a bit for 2 minutes. Okay. I have some little information, but thank you very much, fathers, for blessing us with this day and also for the prayers. Just a few minutes. We had different people who are residing in different hotels, and you had specific designated staff from IRCU. In terms of logistics, you ask any of them, they will be able to communicate to you, but I hope you're feeling okay and you're resting well. The other issue that I wanted to say that we had, because one of the outcomes of this meeting is actually to look at our commitments. So permit me to look through those commitments we have made today, the recommendations we have made today, so that we can carry on tomorrow. 5 minutes. So I want to request Dr. Kaiso, and I'll ask the team up there to be able to project, and he will be able to read. Is that okay? And that will be 5 minutes. Then we'll pray for our tea. Only 10 minutes is what we are asking. Because if you don't look at what we have talked the whole morning, then it is useless. Would have come from Arua, from wherever, only to have a chat, and at the end of the day, 5 years, we'll come back and we can't even evaluate anything. So we are going to look at the outcome of the day and see whether it is running well or there is something that we want to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, also observed. Good evening to you all. Now, these are the issues that emerged during our discussion. Number one, we note the need to build a foundation for further unity in diversity and our religious institutions for the coming generations. Number two, religious leaders need to address the issue of terrorism in one voice, and particularly the issue regarding youth unemployment, offering education opportunities, and administering psychological support to the youth. Religious leaders, that's number three, should implement resolutions passed in the different meetings and conferences. It was noted that these issues, in most cases, are left unattended to. Number four, national religious prayers held at such functions should involve opposition parties, since opposition members are also part of the nation. It was noted that most of the occasions, these opposition parties are left out. Religious leaders should take a firm stand against laws and policies that run counter to our religious and cultural values. Number six, it was noted that the family is a central unit in the fight against moral decadence and social vices, e.g. corruption. Number seven, religious institutions and not government, nor schools, should shoulder the responsibility of the teaching and imparting moral values in society. Number eight, family, religion, and culture are the pillars to rebuild the morality and the social values, not comprehensive sexuality education. Number nine, there is need to consider the lives of both boys and girls whose lives were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, not only to look at the girls alone. 10, the religious leaders should strengthen the advocacy campaign in government programs in the country. 11, schools, religious institutions, and government should make comprehensive arrangements to contain the likely challenges following the opening of schools in the country. 12, how do you ensure that the readmission of pregnant girls in the school system does not lead to further pregnancies or immorality? 13, to survive the emerging challenges, religious institutions must adapt the following stages: preparedness, mitigation, response, and then recovery. 14, religious leaders must play multiple roles going beyond the pulpit, that is preaching. They need to include explaining and teaching their communities. 15, our role as religious leaders is to ensure holistic education. That is to educate the head, the heart, the hands, and have concern for the entire community. And then lastly, a religious leader should pastor the entire community, not his immediate religious community or congregation. Thank you very much.
Does it cover your thoughts, opinions, ideas, observations? If there is anything that is lacking, please write it down on the paper, and I'll ask Reverend Wejuli to speak to your ideas. We don't have much time. We know there is curfew, and I don't want religious leaders to be held somewhere. So please write, put up your hand and write your ideas. He will be able to speak it. So I'll ask Chef Waiswa to press for the tea and eat. So please come and press for the tea. The ladies prayed, but they forgot to press for the tea.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of the Almighty God, the compassion, we thank you, Lord, for the guidance and protection and the provision that you have empowered us with throughout the day. We pray, Almighty God, that you continue to cater for us, especially for the evening eats and drinks that we are about to take, so that we refresh our bodies and we continue to reflect upon those very important subjects and points that have been inspired to us today. We pray, Almighty God, that you enable us again to reconvene here tomorrow in total energy to undertake the remaining part of the assembly. We pray in your name.
Remains behind the organizing secretariat of IRCU. We are going to remain here for some 20 minutes, but the rest of the delegates, please have your cup of tea, and then don't forget that there is curfew. So your vehicles at the different places where the vehicles were parked, please go and they will take you there. All the best. See you tomorrow. We'll be here at, I think, 8:30, so that at 9 we start. Thank you.